Now to an alarming development in Iowa after the partial collapse of that apartment building in the city of Davenport on Sunday. A survivor was found a full day after the collapse. Now that's the good news, but it happened after officials say the building was empty and ready to be demolished. Now people are wondering if others may still be trapped inside.
All right, so you heard that right. It's a building set to be demolished, but it just collapsed in a predominantly black neighborhood, in a predominantly black apartment complex, rather, in Davenport, Iowa. So far, 8 people have been rescued, but 5 still remain missing, which has put the demolition on hold for now. Breakthrough News provided on-the-ground coverage of what's happened so far there in Davenport and the response from many in the community actually protesting the demolition. Let's watch.
Protesters rallied around a partially collapsed apartment complex in Davenport, Iowa, as city officials prepared to demolish it. Residents say 2 people are still unaccounted for, Ryan Hitchcock and Brandon Colvin, but the city plans to move forward with the demolition anyway. Previously, city officials claimed there were no signs of life left in the building and prepared to send in demo crews until resident Lisa Brooks was seen waving from a 4th floor window.
National media is saying what a great job they did finding everybody, and it's not the truth. They said that there are no injuries. They had to have their leg cut off for them to get them out of this building. Is that not an injury?
Residents are saying that what they're calling a failed rescue calls attention to the city's apparent disinterest in ensuring the safety of its black residents as it prepares to potentially leave tenants in the rubble. Activists say that the lack of housing protections is what led to this disaster. As of 2023, Iowa ranked 4th worst in public housing inspections in the U.S. The apartment building, which was constructed in 1906, despite showing early signs of collapse, was assessed not by a city department, but by a private engineering firm hired by the property owner.
The rescue crew still has not found the 5 folks who are still missing, and you heard that right. They're trying to move forward with the demolition. So the details about why this building initially collapsed, aside from just being very old and a lack of housing repairs, is still undetermined. So we have reporting from CNN. The cause of the Davenport collapse has not been determined, but the building's owner had current permits for repairs to the exterior wall. Officials said that owner has been served with a demolition order, Davenport officials said on Monday. So the city has sought to fine the owner of the apartment, Andrew Wold, for only $300. Andrew Wold, the owner of the apartment building at 324 Main Street that collapsed on Sunday, has been fined $300 and court fees for not keeping the building safe and sanitary. The city of Davenport accuses Wold and his business, Davenport Hotel LLC, of not keeping the building in, quote, safe, sanitary, and structurally sound condition on the date of the collapse. Of the 5 that have been found, or was it 8 that have been found? We're gonna check with the producers in a second. 2 have the identity, or 2 of those 5, their identities have been confirmed. So Brandon Colvin and Ryan Hitchcock are 2 that are still believed to be trapped inside. Their photos are right there. And here's a tweet from Leah Goodrich. She said, listen up, this is Brian Colvin and Ryan Hitchcock. They are both tenants believed to still be in the building. I need us all to lift them up in prayer. And if you don't believe in that, then send good vibes and get them out. So those are their faces. That's the tweet from Leah. The mother of Ryan Hitchcock was in an interview, and she said she desperately wants her son to be saved from the rubble. Let's watch.
News, or somebody probably told me, but I didn't know for a while.
So, as I understand it, his cell phone.
I don't know where his cell phone is or really anything because I never got to talk to him. As far as I know, he's under the rubble still. I want him to get him out.
All right, so those are the 2 folks that are still missing that were in that photo. Iowa officials have reported that the 5 that are missing still haven't been found. Protests are ongoing to stop the demolition from happening. They want to move forward with this demolition in a building in Davenport, Iowa, of predominantly black folks. The owner, who should have been responsible for the repairs, is only being asked to pay $300 plus court fees. This is a ridiculous situation. I've been in Davenport, Iowa. It's one of the few parts of the Midwest that does have a large Latino and a large Black population. Iowa being fourth in the country for public housing, I think tells us a lot about why something like this might happen. Jordan, I want to bring you in here. What are your thoughts on the situation?
It's difficult. It's difficult to think about, and it's frustrating because we see these issues in our communities nationwide. There was an apartment fire just north of DC a couple months ago, and the building that this fire took place in, it displaced hundreds of people. It killed one woman just from smoke inhalation and injured 17. And that building, because they were in a county that didn't require these buildings to have sprinklers until 2030, because real estate groups and landlords groups lobbied against a county protocol, they prolonged this requirement by like 2 decades. And in response to that, in a blue state in Maryland, right after this incident, the state legislature pushed for a requirement for all buildings to have sprinklers, but then they killed it. It didn't pass. So even in blue states, you still see real estate groups and landlord groups influence legislation, influence regulations to help them affect their bottom line. It would cost them money to put sprinklers in a lot of these buildings, and they don't want to do that because they want to make more money. But then people are left in unsafe situations. And you're seeing that here in Iowa, you're seeing it in the DC area, you're seeing it nationwide. People need a safe place to live. And because we've turned housing into a commodity and in some respects, an investment vehicle, more and more people see that as an unrealistic prospect. And thousands, maybe millions of people are in unsafe situations nationwide because of greed.
I think it's exactly right. To break it down to that extent, that's what we're dealing with here. The commodification of housing has put us in this kind of a situation. There's of course the racial element here, where this was a predominantly Black apartment complex that has a lot to do with how much attention is given to repairs. We live in a society that is extremely racist at the systemic level, Iowa included, which was a state that fought with the Union Army. Yet you'll see all over the state of Iowa Confederate flags because there's a cultural identification with the Confederacy and with the South there. There's a lot of racist sentiment in Iowa. We see them increasingly voting for far-right candidates and moving further to the right, moving more towards voting for Trump from 2016 voting trends to 2020. It's really scary. And when we talk about housing and how we could provide housing for everyone if we wanted to, and it's a choice not to, it kind of sounds like maybe that's true, but economically, someone really smart has done the math, and that's actually not how it works. People who are developers have said, well, I get that you're saying that you want everyone to have a home, but things are really complicated with the math, and so everyone can't have a home. It's not like that at all whatsoever. The amount that we waste as a country, the amount of vacant units we have is so vast compared to the people who are currently unhoused or living in living conditions that are not standard, that are not necessary to live in, whether they're living in a home that's decrepit and they have a slumlord, or they're one of the many people that have decided to move in with roommates when they would otherwise rather be living alone, where you have multiple people living in bedrooms. So the housing crisis is far beyond just the amount of people who are currently experiencing homelessness. It's a lot bigger than that. When you think about developers whose only goal is to make more money, you have, on one hand, people who just want a place to sleep and a roof over their head. And on the other hand, you have people who have a bunch of money and want to make more money off of it. What do you prioritize? In our economy, it's the people who want to make more money. It's developers who want to buy apartment complexes in cash and get rent from all of those renters on a monthly basis. And folks who are struggling to afford their bills on a minimum wage job, who are at risk of homelessness if they don't make their rent. It's unnecessary when we provide the amount of resources and goods and services that we do as an economy for us to be wasting things and forcing people to live on the street just because people who want to make passive income off of being landlords, they want to get richer. That's who's benefiting in our economic setup. Jordy, any last thoughts on this before we move on?
There was a story in the Wall Street Journal last week about how these people who are trying to put their money in real estate and apartment complexes as an investment tool, they're seeing that backfire. They're seeing potentially a housing bubble burst and a rental bubble burst. And there was a quote from someone who led one of these investment schemes, would take people's money and then go buy properties and they would get returns on their investment. He said he got into it because he was tired of working for his money every day. And I thought that was a perfect quote that really exemplified just how being a landlord is not a real job. And I couldn't wish them anything but the worst.
Yeah, we have work requirements for people trying to get food stamps. No work requirements for landlords and capital investors. Maybe there should be. Where are the work requirements for the people exploiting all of our labor and leeching off of our work? I would love to know. I want to make sure we're clear on those numbers there that got a little mixed up. So the situation at the Davenport apartment complex from our producers, we've got 8 that have been found, 5 that are believed to still be there. And of those 5, we know the identities of 2. So really a sad situation in Davenport. Our hearts go out to the families there and those who have loved ones who are missing. And thanks to the protesters for being in the street, doing the good work and fighting the good fight.